is not your regular tier list video. In fact, this isn't even a tier list video at all. I'm going to be ranking every single prize card that we've had this year in 2023 from the worst to the best. We've had 55 prize card releases up till August. This is not including the Pagani Huayra R and the Koenigsegg because we don't know how well they perform yet because we can't win them yet. But for every single card that has already been released, that is 55. And I'll be ranking every single one from 55 to number 1 in my personal opinion. So let me know down in the comments below if you're going to agree or disagree. I spent a lot of time on this, so I really hope that you guys enjoy this kind of video. Because if you do, I might be replacing the tier list kind of, genre with this billboard countdown kind of thing. It reminds me back in the day when I was a kid. I know it's of the mental capacity of a child, but this is when I was literally still a child. I was watching like one of my favorite videos. I would go online and I would just be like, ooh, the top 10 best aliens from Ben 10 and all that kind of stuff, right? And then they would count down, and then if someone puts Diamond Head, who is my favorite, in number 3, I would get really pissed off because I'm just like, no, Diamond Head's not number 3, Diamond Head's number 1, Diamond Head's the best alien, things like that. Anyway, I'm doing that with top drives and with every single prize card that has been released in this year. So let me know down in the comments below if you agree or disagree. These are the ranks that we're going to be looking at, okay? So I'll be splitting these 55 cars into 4 categories. We have trophy car, which is a nice way of saying hot garbage, infrequent provider, weekend driver, and Der Kaiser. So a little bit of the tier list element in this video in terms of like these different categories where I think how, where they kind of dictate how useful I feel these cars are. So without further ado, let's get into it. In 55th place, the worst car released this year, in my opinion, is the GMC Yukon XL Denali. Not much to say about this. Have you maxed yours? Have you used yours? The answer is probably no. So we do start in the trophy car category. In 54th place, the second most useless car that was given out this year, in my opinion, is the Range Rover SVR. It literally just is an epic version of the GMC Yukon Denali. They're both really heavy cars with relatively okay 0 to 60s, but they suck in the handling department and they aren't your first choice dragsters anyway. So in 54th place is the Sport SVR, which I think is really sad because the other 2 epics that were given out alongside the SVR, the Lotus and the ZL11LE, are way ahead in the list. So this genuinely was an outlier. Now in 53rd place, it's the Di Tommaso P72. This car is going to be either always stock in someone's garage collecting dust, or the most people are going to bring it up to is like 1 star. And at 1 star, this car is like, what, 3.493? Considering how amazing epics can be in the game now with, over 100 MRA and over 100 handling and all that kind of stuff, the stats suck on the P72. This thing is going to be nothing but a trophy car. And honestly, I can see it going down to an epic one day, and then it'll be a very useful car. But for now, it is not just worth it at all. It's just not worth it. All right, now 52nd place is the Country John Cooper Works. Again, it handles better than the GMC. Yes, and it handles a lot better than the Rover as well. That being said, it's a 4-wheel drive all-surface tire car that, nobody's really gonna touch because nobody really cares about 4-wheel drive all-surface tires. You can always just go for an off-road tire option, which is so much better in the dirt anyway. Moving on to 51, talking about off-road tires, is the Morgan Plus 4. Again, yes, it has off-road tires, but it does not handle. This car literally loses to ultra rares, and it just isn't worth upgrading. It is really cool looking, I gotta be honest, but it isn't all that useful. I have it stock and I've not used it at all. Moving on is the Morgan 3-wheeler P101. Super light, standard tires, and that's it, man. People thought that it was gonna be a rival to the Caterham. That is the biggest joke of the goddamn year. It does not hold a candle to the Caterham. Obviously, that isn't even a price car. Moving on in 49th, I guess we go to the top 50, that's not saying much, is the Alfa Romeo SZ. I have 2 of these, and honestly, like the first one I maxed. I don't even use, especially with Amalfi Coast that brings a lot more, Italian cars that handle, because before Amalfi Coast, there weren't a lot of Italian Supers that handled, so there was a little bit of use for the SZ, but after Amalfi Coast, literally every Italian, like so many Italian cars handle really well now, where the SZ is kind of just redundant. So yeah, 49, not that useful, especially for a second, the big cheese car. Moving on in 48, the Lotus Evora GT4, again, much like the Di Tommaso, waiting for this to go down to Epic, dude. If it doesn't go down to Epic, it's just gonna be some gatekeeper legendary RQ80. No one's ever gonna max it, because why would you spend 15 epics on an RQ80 when you can spend it on an RQ99 or above? So yeah, not much about to say. Not many good things to say about this car. I like the Petronas livery. That's really cool, and that's it. Moving on, 47th place is the Mercedes-Benz CLK GTR. Did anybody remember that this car was given out this year? I love Mercedes, and I love the CLK GTR. But as much as I love the brand, I don't even have this car 1 star in my garage. It's literally still sitting there stock. And that's saying a lot for, you know, a brand that I love a lot to not even bother to 1 star it. Because at the end of the day, yeah, the MRA is fantastic and the top speed is really good too. But when you get that at 1 star, what's that, 3.594? Again, just not good enough. Now, 46th place is the Nissan Violet rally car, in my opinion. Rear-wheel drive off-road tires, but it does not handle. I would just rather choose the RQ41 Nissan Toronto. It's 4-wheel drive. It handles so much better and high ground clearance as well, so I can deploy it on a motocross track set. 45th place is the Morgan Plus 8 50th anniversary. I think some people are gonna disagree with me on this. They're gonna think that it's relatively useful because it's, you know, it's a jack of all trades, master of none, kind of, you know, useful in all kind of situations kind of car. It doesn't matter. I'd rather just use like one of the Porsches or just the Alpha 4C if I wanted to use a jack of all trades kind of car. This is the only ultra rare prize car that I have in my garage that is not fully upgraded, so that's really sad. Even the freaking Yukon that I placed in last, I got that maxed because I'm an ultra rare collector, you know. But this, just no point at all. People say the MRA, it's 82 isn't good MRA, buddy. Now moving on to 44 is the Alfa Romeo 155 V6. Stats leave little to be desired. The 4-wheel drive, I feel like, is really useless. If the 4-wheel drive is there to bump up its RQ, it really doesn't matter because it's not like you're gonna use this in the rain anyway. The only reason why it's a little bit higher up the trophy car category is because it's a saloon, so it has a pretty useful niche compared to the other cars. Next up, Rezvani Tank in 43rd place. Again, you know, it's a 4-wheel drive off-road tire car. One of the better cars in this category. That isn't saying much because this is the lowest category available. But the handling just sucks, and it's heavy. It's so freaking heavy. So again, not that cool. Now moving on, we go to the second category now. So we're out of the trophy car category, and now we're into infrequent provider. So these are cars where I feel like you will get some use of. You can max them out and they can be useful, not often, but they can be useful. They're not gonna sit there and collect dust for the entire year, unlike all the other cars. So we start off with the Saturn Sky Redline. You know, in 42nd place, handles all right. Next up is the Lancia Stratus HF Prototipo. I actually have this car maxed out. Use it a little bit on slalom and car park and that kind of stuff. Main thing to utilize about this car is how lightweight it is. Moving on, in 40th place is another Morgan. It's the Morgan Aero 8 race car. Now, the only reason why this isn't in the lowest tier is because it's the best Morgan. It literally just is the best Morgan out there. And I've actually used it before. It's not the worst thing in the world. It is actually I'm not actually quite useful, but it can be useful. In very rare scenarios, it would have to be a Morgan scenario, but it has its uses, and that's why it comes in 40th place in the second lowest tier, I guess, or the third highest tier, however way you want to say it. In 39th place is going to be the Ginetta Akula. Again, one of those prize cars which I've won this year, which I've never really one-starred. I've actually never really used it, and so far up to this point, it's actually collecting dust in my garage, but it isn't too bad. It handles pretty well. It's got a high top speed. The MRI is okay, so I'm gonna give it an infrequent provider tag. Next up is the Chrysler 300 SRT8. I think this one, some people might disagree with me. I've seen a lot of people trash talk this car. The reality is, in a Chrysler situation, it's not that bad. It's a saloon, it's a 5-seater, it's medium ground clearance, and when it comes to American saloons with medium ground clearance, there's not a lot of cars that you can choose from. Obviously, there are better options, but it isn't many, to be honest, and especially when you just count ultra ultra rares, and the 300 SRT8 can be useful. Not very often, but it can be useful, and that's why it comes in at 38 out of 55. Moving on is the Mercedes AMG GT4. Again, handles really well for an RQ82 and is basically a cheap man's Viper ACR. Next up in 36th place is, I guess, the more expensive version of the Viper ACR, but it has slick tires, just like the Mercedes as well. Slightly better version of the Mercedes for sure, and that's why it's in a slightly higher rank. On top of this is the McLaren F1 GTR coming in at 35th place. Again, it used to be a really good car back in the day, but now the motorsport representation in top drives is getting more and more oversaturated. And when I want a motorsport car that does well, it isn't just 95 handling and 100 MRA anymore. Now I'm thinking like 100 plus MRA and 99 or 97 handling, or 97 to 99 handling. So yeah, the F1 GTR short tail kind of didn't, stand the test of time in top drives, although it will forever stand the test of time in real life. It's a fantastic car in real life, but in my opinion, 35th place in terms of all prize cars given out this year, especially in terms of my garage. Next up is the Ford Falcon FPV. Again, it can be useful within its niche, which is, Austria and Ford, a medium ground clearance Ford. It's a saloon and it's 5-seaters. It will have its uses. It definitely isn't even the best in its niche, but at least it's up there. And because of that, I'm giving it 34th place ahead of the McLaren. I know that's going to piss some people off. Moving on to 33 is the Di Tommaso Pantera Group 4. Really sad that I didn't get this one. I had more than enough tokens to unlock the Pantera Group 4. I just didn't know that last month was the last month that you could have won this car. So yeah, oops. So I never got this in my garage. I know a lot of people that did, so congratulations if you did. It's a really cool car, one of the best Di Tommasos in the game as well. I would say even it is the best Di Tommaso in the game, because the other one is a legendary where no one's ever gonna max. So yeah, this one's actually a pretty cool car. And to be honest, if I knew that last month was the last month that I could have gotten the Pantera Group 4, I would have gotten it, but I didn't know, so oops. I did get this Ford though. Now moving on to 32nd place is the AC Cobra 378. It's actually a pretty crap 64, and the only reason why I think it's so far up the list is because it's so easy to upgrade. Again, it's a jack of all trades kind of car, master of none. It's got a ridiculously low 0 to 60 though. It's got the same 0 to 60 as the Campaign Camaro, which I believe is RQ73. That being said though, it's got no MRA and the handling is so-so. Again, not gonna use it in many situations, but you can max it out pretty easily, so I'm gonna put it in 32. Next up in 31st place is the Arash AF10 Hybrid. It's garbage. The only issue is this. Yes, I do feel like this car has been done dirty, because there ain't no way that this thing handles just slightly better or the same as a Bugatti Chiron Sport. So it's only the question of if the Bugatti should get their handling cut or the AF10 should get a handling buff. But as it stands right now, 91 handling for a 4-wheel drive car is just absolutely abysmal. It's terrible. It's truly terrible. 31 in my opinion. Now moving on to the top 30, we start the Rezvani Beast Alpha X Blackbird. It's a worse version of a Challenger Demon. Loses to the Demon in the drags, even though it has great MRA and a relatively low 0 to 60. It's a decent American dragster, but it's not my first, second, or third choice, so it comes in 30th place. Moving on, there's a brand new category. We now move on to the top 2 categories of weekend driver. These are cars that I tend to use pretty often. Whether they lose a lot or they win a lot, the point is I do use them pretty often. And we're gonna start off with the Ford Capri Piranha. 83 handling when you max it out. It's pretty lightweight, and yes, I use this car a lot. It loses a lot, but it's an RQ saver, and because of that, I'm gonna give it weekend driver. I use it a lot more than the other cars in the category, I'll tell you that much. Moving on to 28th place is the BMW M5 CS. I love this car. It's honestly one of my favorite prize car releases of 2023. That being said, what I've realized, I own this car and I have 2 upgrades in it. I'd still rather use my RQ87 BMW M5, which I fully upgraded. The only thing about the M5 CS is this: if you really want to get true usage out of this, you gotta have to max the handling. And that isn't really, nice in terms of how you want to promote a legendary. It's kind of like, oh yeah, for this legendary to be really good, you still need to put in 6 epics into it, you know what I mean? Like, legendaries should be great cars that become amazing when you upgrade them. But the M5 CS is actually a pretty mediocre car that becomes a great car after you upgrade them. Pretty substantially as well, in my opinion. Like I said, I own this car, I have it 366, and it just loses races where I think it shouldn't, you know what I mean? So yeah, it's kind of a sad story. I still use it a lot though, because it still is one of the best saloons in the game. It's also 4-wheel drive with a very low 0 to 60. Moving on to 27th place is the Pagani Imola. Again, I own the Pagani Revolution, so there's a reason why the Imola is so far up the list. But then again, there are better options, which we will see in 26th place, the Ginetta G56. I get it, the Imola has performance tires and the Ginetta has slick tires, but at the end of the day, the majority of the time you're going to be using these cars are going to be on the dry asphalt anyway, and I'd rather use the G56 that handles a little bit better. But you know what's better than the G56? Yeah, the Porsche 911 GT198. It has the same handling, but it's got lower 0 to 60 and a higher top speed. But you know what's better than the GT198? The Expo GTX. So yeah, as you can see, there is definitely some sense in this. In 24th place is the Expo GTX 3097, and it's got pretty good MRI as well. I would like to use this car, but I didn't win it, so unlucky. Moving on to 23rd place. This might come to a surprise for some people. It's the Citroen BX4TC. The main issue is this. It's medium ground clearance, it's 4-wheel drive, and it's not that bad. It's very versatile in French events. There are not a lot of French cars that are 4-wheel drive, that are medium ground clearance. A lot of French cars, they don't even have a top speed of 138 miles per hour. Sometimes it's lower than that. Most French cars are hatchbacks that are front-wheel drive that handle pretty well, but sometimes I need a car in the rain, and there are not a lot of French standard tire representation as well in the low RQ. So more often than not, especially in clubs, I use the Citroen BX4TC a lot, and especially during French events. So because of that, I'm giving it a 23rd spot. Moving on to 22 is the Lancia LC1 Spider. It's a pretty damn good prize car, I'll tell you that much. A 1980s niche. MRA is great, super light, and it handles really well. 21st place is the AC Cobra 378 Super Blower. Quarter mile beast, but the MRI could be better, so it's not that good. 0 to 60 is really low, but the top speed is also really disappointing. Handling doesn't really matter much for this car because you're getting 3.3 through it no matter what. But yeah, I just feel like it could be a little better, and that's why in 20th place is the BMW M530 Jarre edition. It actually beats the Cobra on the 1 mile. The Cobra beats the BMW on the quarter mile, and they both tie on the half mile. So, it's kind of like a 1-1-1 kind of situation, and the BMW is just a lot cheaper to use. 3RQ cheaper. It also has the 5-seater niche. It also has the saloon niche, which is a lot less competitive when it comes to straight line drag compared to, the 2-seater niche. So because of that, yeah, the BMW M5 is just slightly better. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm belittling any of these cars in weekend driver. If the prize car made it to weekend driver category, it's already pretty good in my books, to be honest. But yeah, the M530 Jarre edition is pretty damn good. It's the German Charger Juice, or the German Hellcat. It's really fun to use. Next up in 19th place, now we're moving on to the top 20, is the Saleen S7 Twin Turbo. It basically is a more juiced up version of a Ford GT90, or a watered down version of a Hennessy. So is that middle ground? It's pretty good. I have it upgraded, and really I feel like this is going to be one of the great American prize cars if you can max it out. So again, it's a really expensive investment, and if you want a better one, you would just go for the Hennessy Venom. That isn't in the list because that was given out last year. Now, in 18th place, the final car in the weekend driver category is going to be the Porsche RS Spyder that we most recently just won. Well, if you want it. It's pretty damn good, 2.797, but again, they're just better options now. So unfortunately, this is 18th place. And now we go on to the Kaiser. These are going to be what I feel are the best cars given out in 2023. So we move on to the top 17, and we start off with the Holden HSV GTSR. It's medium ground clearance, it handles well, good MRA, and it's a saloon, and it's a 5-seater. I believe it's a 5-seater. It might be classified as a 4-seater. That's something that I need to double check on, but it is really really, really good. Basically a cheap man's version of the Cadillac ATS-V. That being said, the Cadillac ATS-V literally is a Blossom choice car. This car is phenomenal, and it's definitely in my top 3 list of epics that I want to max in my garage. Moving on to 16th place is the Alfa Romeo 177. It is the second best Alfa Romeo in the game, especially for on-road performance, dry asphalt, that kind of stuff. It's ridiculously light, MRA is great, high top speed, and it handles really well. Moving on, in 15th place is the Chevrolet Camaro Z11LE, one of the best, if not the best, muscle car in the game, especially in terms of handling. 100 handling, muscle car. MRA is decent, top speed is high, 0 to 60 is low. It's a jack of all trades kind of car, to be honest, but at the same time, it is still a specialist at the same time, which makes it really good because it's a 100 handling muscle car. Moving on to 14th place, you might have won this recently, is the Lamborghini Huracan Performante. One of the best Lamborghinis in the game, and one of the few Lamborghinis that I truly hold to a very high regard. The MRA is strong, the top speed is high, and it's everything that the Atrash isn't. It handles a little bit better. The 0 to 60 is a little bit lower. It knows what it wants to be. It's not trying to compete against a Bugatti Chiron. It's more of a twisty orientated car, but the MRA is still respectable. So because of that, I'm going to give it the 14th spot. Moving on to the 13th spot is going to be the Ford Bronco R. Basically is the better, Raptor, basically. It's got a high ground clearance, it handles better, and it just beats the Raptor in almost every single track set. And honestly, it would have been probably like the second best four-wheel drive off-road tire epic before APGP. It was only behind like the MG Metro, and there's also that other RQ78 Lancia off-roader that they haven't released, so nobody has that yet. So as it stands, this car is really useful. But now with the introduction of, APGP, and when their off-road tire cars, price cars get released, then this car is definitely gonna move up the ranks. I mean, move down the ranks, but move up in the numbers, I guess. Move down. The number's gonna increase, 13 to 15 to 20. You get what I mean. Moving on to the 12th spot is the Porsche Cayman GT4 Club Sport. Amazing handling, it's really reliable. I use it all the time. I have it maxed. It's great. And in the 11th spot, wrapping up all the off-roaders, is going to be the Lotus Exige RGT. In my opinion, it's the best out of the 3 because for one simple reason, it handles the best. Now, we move on to the top 10. So what are the cars that we've not seen yet? Comment down below which car you think I'm going to put in first place. In 10th place is the Lotus 211 GT4 Super Sport. One of the few cars in top drives that genuinely withstood the test of time. This car has been an epic for a very long time. It's been in the game since the game's beginning, literally since 2017, and it remains one of the greatest cars ever. One of the greatest epics, I would say. It's incredibly light. 0 to 60 is incredibly low, and the handling is very impressive. So it starts off at the top 10. Moving on to number 9 is the Mazda 787B, one of the best Japanese cars in the game, but in my opinion, not the best. But I think a lot of people will disagree on what I think the best is. But yeah, the 787B, one of the best Japanese cars in the entire game that has been released so far. I should reiterate that point. Very high top speed, really good MRI, amazing handling. 9th place for the 787B. Moving on to 8th place is the car which I thought was just slightly better of an option over the Mazda, which is the Peugeot 405 T16. And the main reason is that four-wheel drive off-road tire niche is a niche that I genuinely want to capitalize on, and it's very insane because it decimates any all-surface tire kind of car. The handling is great. It's also four-wheel drive. This is a ridiculous price car. I'm so glad they brought it back, and I'm so glad that I had the opportunity to win the bad boy. Moving on to the 7th position is the Audi R10 TDI. I feel bad for this car because I feel like a lot of people have forgotten that it even existed because the R18 was released literally 2 months afterwards. This car is strong. It's good. The MRA is pretty good. It's less than 100 though. But it is one of the best diesel cars in the game, and the handling is great. The top speed is high, but it's just a sad story because people tend to forget that this car exists because the R18 exists in the game now. Moving moving on to the 6th spot, which I think is the best Japanese car that was released this year, and that is the long boy, the Nissan GT-R LM Nismo. And for one reason alone, it is the best front-wheel drive car in the entire game. We've had an entire Asian update that had a chance to bring cars to topple the GT-R LM Nismo, and none of them failed to do so. I mean, none of them succeeded in doing so. Like, literally, they all failed. The Nismo is still the best front-wheel drive car in the entire game. So, you know, it's a club cash cow, and it's really, really good. The MRA is strong, the top speed is high, the handling is good. The only thing that I would say is pretty weak about the GT-R LM Nismo is that for a 95 RQ car, 2.8 for a 0 to 60 is pretty weak. But that's a small issue. This car is amazing. We love the long boy. Now, let's move on to the top 5. Is your car not here yet? Comment down below what you think is going to be in number 1. In 5th place, it's going to be the Ultima RS, also known as the British Hennessy or the British Bugatti Chiron or whatever you want to call it. Amazing MRA, an incredibly high top speed, and a ridiculously low 0 to 60. This thing is ridiculous and is basically the drag version of the P1 GTR, where the P1 GTR is more of like a hybrid twisty kind of car, or fast circuit or twisty circuit. But yeah, the Ultima RS is amazing. Now, moving on to 4th place is my favorite prize car released this year. That is a legendary, because my favorite prize car released this year is always going to be the Z011 LE. But in terms of legendary, my favorite legendary prize car that was released this year is, of course, the Mercedes C11. Now, this is where a little bit of my bias comes in, because this car is very, very close in performance to the Audi R10, which I put in 7th spot. They kind of go blow for blow. Like, the Audi wins in some cases, the Mercedes-Benz C11 wins in some cases. So I just want to let you know that I do have bias for the placement of this car. I can see people switching it up, putting the Mercedes in 7th and the Audi in 4th, or maybe the Mercedes in 5th and the Audi in 4th. That would seem like it makes a little bit more sense as well. But yeah, I am biased towards this car. I have it fully upgraded. I use it all the damn time. It's won me many dailies, many events. It's won me many ceramic packs and carbon fibers. It's amazing. MRA is great. Top speed is just higher than the Audis. It's just a slightly better dragster. The handling is just slightly less than the Audis, but it's still really, really, really good. And it's a light car as well. So in 4th place, in my opinion, is the Mercedes C11. Now we move on to the top 3, and in 3rd place, I'm gonna give it to the BAC Mono, which is basically your Caterham Levante on steroids. I have the Caterham Levante, which used to be one of the best slalom cars in the entire game, and I even put in 6 epics to max the handling of that car to make it, you know, a slalom beast. And here comes the BAC Mono. At 1 star, it beats my upgraded Levante already. It makes me look like a clown, honestly, that I even upgraded the Levante for the slalom reason, because the BAC Mono is such a freaking beast. At 1 star, you're already getting a car, what, 2.4 of a 0 to 60 and like 101 handling? Insane. I really want to max it. It is so good, and it's one of the best British cars that you can get right now. But there is a British car that is better. In 2nd place, it's the Lotus Evija. I've given this car a lot of trash talk in the past, and I think deservedly so, because back in the past, it was basically considered to be one, you know, the best car in the game. It shared the highest RQ with actual best cars in the game. And you know, back in the day, this thing had the same RQ as a freaking Porsche 919, and at the same RQ was like a freaking, what else were the highest top cars? You know, the Audi R18 and all that kind of stuff. Like, that didn't make any sense. It literally didn't make any sense. And I'm pretty sure that this photo is outdated. I don't think it's 103 anymore. Is it? I'm not sure. I hope not. But anyway, yes, the fact of the matter is, now that it isn't, or at least it is way less overrated in terms of RQ, I can see how useful this car is. I was just roasting it in the past because I used to think that it was incredibly overrated. And at the end of the day, though, 103 RQ and your 0 to 60 is 2.9 seconds is still terrible, you know? But again, why it's 2nd place this year? Well, the Peugeot T16 was not given out this year, right? What else? The Rimac Nevera was not given out this year. You know what I mean? The Volkswagen IDR Pikes Peak was not given out this year. So, in other words, not a lot of amazing cars were given out in 2023 for the Evija to be 2nd place. That's what I'm trying to say. But anyway, why why I chose the top 3 is because the BAC Mono is the best prize card that we've gotten this year in terms of twisty. The Avia is the best prize card we've gotten this year in terms of drag. And in first place is the best prize card we've gotten out this year, is the best prize card in a hybrid sense, in basically almost every track set. It is indeed the Audi R18 TDI Ultra. In first place, this is the best prize card that we've given out this year, that has been given out this year in my opinion. 225 for a top speed, 2.5 for a 0 to 60, and 101 handling with 100 MRA. It still has a 3-digit MRA number, even though it got nerfed. That's how insane this thing is, dude. So yes, in first place, the best prize car given out in 2023 up till August, what day is it today? 4th, is indeed the Audi R18 TDI Ultra, in my opinion. But anyway, guys, let me know down in the comments below if you agree or disagree with my list from 55 to number 1. What is your number 1? Anyway, I hope you guys have a great day. Remember to stay safe, wash your hands, and blossom out. Peace.
Bro, this song just makes me so happy.
Me too.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly. Got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Imagine being Asian in the 50s, looking nifty, leather jacket, looking sleek, look like Presley, look so deadly. Got a jukebox back at home, feeling jazzy, turn it on and play it slow, like the movies with the ladies.
They so fine.
Sit back, relax in my Bonneville Pontiac. Hold tight all night, cruise